Hi, Mark Swan with the Civil Discourse Now. It is January 10th, 2025, North American continent on planet Earth. Cassie Jackson is guest today once more. Cassie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. I'm absolutely disgusted today, especially with the notion that with all the crap that we've gone through in this country, to have people give any kind of credibility to someone like Trump and how quickly everything has seemed to go even further right wing than it was before, which is despicable.
That's
Um,
really very good adjectives.
well, I mean, if you look at what our rights are and what they're trying to tell us we can and can't do, it's you know Trump's going to end the republic if he gets a chance. The rest of the world knows he's a stooge for the Russians, or Russian, it's Putin, and he's never done anything positive as far as economy or plans of anything. He
Right.
said that he wanted to change healthcare. When?
Mhm.
I mean, so what we're going to see is if he's allowed to take office, we're going to see a rapid crunch of this country as though it is a train going at a wall that won't give. And he doesn't give a damn about other people. And we are so split. People have their sources of information carved up so much that people don't talk to one another, don't communicate effectively. And so you have people like Beckwith able to kind of interpose himself with total inanity, because who's going to call him on it? I mean,
Well,
when
we are. Let me just interject really quickly. Speaking of Beckwith,
absolutely.
I'm glad that you do you mind? Yeah. You're like, well, you're gonna do it anyway. But speaking of Beckwith, I think that we should remember that there is really needs to be a look and a question into JD Vance, right? Because it may not be Mr. Trump, just like it may not be Mr. Braun, who's the governor, if something happens to him. And again, I just want to reiterate quickly that Mr. Braun should absolutely be careful because I don't trust Mr. Beckwith, who comes from Hillsdale, Michigan, which is home of the Heritage Foundation, which is who are the authors of Project 2025, who obviously Trump cannot say no to in a lot of instances. Hopefully, JD has a little more, you know, but those connections with Mr. Beckwith and the fact that he's that close to governor, just like JD is that close to president, really should be taken seriously. And I'm concerned for Mr. Braun's life because those are foul people. And I do not put it past any kind of those connections to actually potentially try to take you know, I think there might be risk to Mr. Mike
Well,
Braun's
there,
life.
when we're looking at traditional views of government and elected officials, suspicion of elected officials is the very heart of the United States founding. So saying things about being suspicious of someone like Beckwith is as American as you can get.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
so patriotic. Do you see?
I just think that Mr. Braun should be careful about anybody eating bananas in the state house because they're
Right.
easy to slip on and you could fall down steps. Just all these different things he might want to be aware of. But then
Right.
when you look at, I mean, I look back at having been on mouthwash for like 3 years, and I thought being on a podcast locally that by being on there and giving kind of an alternate view, I was making some kind of headway on providing information to people that was outside of that kind of loop. And I was wrong about it. And I wasn't wrong about the views that
I
I
don't know if
stand
you
for.
were wrong about it or if they like the crowd that watched that show like are truly just frankly, to be honest, like undereducated or uneducated, um and and very like Christian nationalistic ish, which is all about control and all about making it about like, if they, if they don't agree with you, what they can do really easily is try to pick out some kind of Old Testament Bible verse that Jesus said, except he wasn't alive for 300 years after that, and this like, it's so repulsive. So I think it may be more the audience. I just don't want you to say you didn't have an impact. I think if that show garnered in more intelligent clientele, right, to subscribe to it, that absolutely it would have, you know. But I think unfortunately it was used as like like look at this silly mark, and it's like, I don't know, guys. Or we could look
That
at
was
credentials and licenses and schooling. That would probably make sense. But you can't trust professionals. You can't trust professionals anymore. You can only trust the ones, right? Like Tiffany says, who Donald Trump recommends, like these quack doctors. Anyway, go ahead.
well,
Sorry, I had to get
and
that
let's
out.
talk about those docs for just a minute, because I saw that Beckwith is back in telling people what they shouldn't have to do as far as any precautions against the latest avian flu.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
and he's saying, oh, and okay, so let's get this really straight. And there's a reason why a lot of these diseases disappeared and were almost non-existent as of like 30 years ago. And that's because of modern vaccines.
Hmm.
And yeah, there are problems with, and there can be exceptions on the vaccine is tried out and like 1 out of 10,000 or something, they have problems. But look at
We
it
have to.
this way.
Yeah, good.
Because if you look at how well those have been handled, you have to look at whose rights are involved and how do you do cost benefit analysis. Think about motorcycle helmets. You have a right not to have to wear a helmet.
Mm.
Normally, it doesn't turn out really well. And there
Right.
might be a really, really tiny sliver of cases in which somebody's on a motorcycle and they're not wearing a helmet, and actually they suffer fewer injuries than
Mark,
if
didn't
they
you
had
know
been
you
wearing.
just need to pray before
No,
you
no,
get
but
on your
here's my point.
cycle. You
Here's my
just have to
point.
pray before you get on your motorcycle, you'll be better.
Yeah, but here's the point though. If you look at that cost benefit analysis, yeah,
Sure.
you have a right to do that, but the rest of us pay for you being a quadriplegic the rest of your life
Mhm.
because you can't provide for yourself. And so it's like, okay, well, so when you're talking about vaccines, you're talking about little kids dying,
Mhm.
and also you're talking about nullifying the effects of vaccines overall.
Can we
Because,
also, yep. No,
go
I mean
ahead.
also with the, I mean, the thing is that the idea that that COVID is not a real thing is so preposterous, because we know that like variants of the coronavirus have been around for, I mean, that's science. SARS-CoV-19 was a different variant of that, but we've had they're literally denying scientists for the last how 20, at least decade, 2 decades, excuse me, probably 6 decades. I don't want to say for sure because I'm not sure when it was discovered.
Well, but there are variations of these. Yeah, you're going back in time, but
But I mean,
because
they're right. They don't understand anything as it relates to. I was just trying to get back to your point about avian flu. Go ahead.
well, and but also right now is they've dumbed people down so much to accept these things that we don't have control over the information that's going to kids, and those kids are growing up to kind of keep getting pushed towards idiocy. I mean, because if you look at what Beckwith says about history, for example, he
Hmm.
lies. And
Hmm.
and you don't and when I have people like the host at Mouthwash would go, well, no, Micah says this or that. It's like, wait a minute, I'm quoting documents from the founding of this country.
Right.
So it's
Right.
not like I've got my view and he can view whatever he wishes.
Right. It's like this is
Screw it.
actual real life, and that's Micah's delusion and fantasy slash whatever he's being fed from these people in his home. Literally, you can just be like in his backyard, in his hometown, it's all the same, and you can look at exactly, he has no original thought. You can look across the country when his themes come up of like what he wants to be upset about now, and it's the same everywhere. He's a tiny little fucking puppet. It's so gross. And I think to your point too, it doesn't matter how Micah presents in person. I've had people that have really wanted to be like, and these other pastors, you don't know them, they're vulnerable. I'm like, you don't know them. You see them in social settings in one role where it's a pastor. Do you think that in the church or in any of the functions where you see him when he has his pastor hat on, that he would be anything different or not be put like he knows he is. That's why they're using Micah, right? Because Micah's been indoctrinated into the beliefs that he's superior. So he's self-righteous. And they've also crowned this little fucker, as being like, oh, the best warrior, because he's willing to be so, you know, uh, so bold. They love the word bold with their little backyard cult church. They love, he's so bold in the way he just, stepped out in front, and it's a battlefield. The Bible's a battlefield, and Jesus was a warrior, and Micah is this little warrior. He's going to like stand in the fire. It's like, no, Micah is indoctrinated child since birth who also has a personality disorder and is a fucking asshole. He has relationship dysfunction across all areas of his life. It was clear after I saw him and Susan interact, even from the pantry. He tells her exactly what to do. Nobody likes that. The way he talks online, the way that he's getting along with his other little Republican Party boos and then going behind their back and talking shit, the way he gets along, even with people, I'm sure, at his church, because even on his like Jesus, Sex, and Politics podcasts, he has to be reprimanded by these disgusting other pastors for like the stuff that he says. It is wild. It is, oh, sorry.
That's okay. And so we come to the conclusion of yet one more segment.
We'll come back.
Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small. Cassie Jackson has been here today.
Thanks for listening, Mark.
Peace and everything.